Hello, Scott Telek, author of The Swithin, the only Arthurian series you'll ever need, and we are continuing our reading of Sir Thomas Malory's Morte d'Arthur. Now, last time we had Uther trick Igraine into making a baby and then marrying him, and now we'll see how that baby is born and ends up with his foster parents. Then Queen Igraine waxed daily greater and greater. So it befell after within half a year, as King Uther lay by his queen, he asked her by the face she owed him whose was the child within her body. Then she was sore abashed to give answer. "Dismay you not," said the king, "but tell me the truth, and I shall love you better, by the faith of my body." "Sir," said she, "the same night that my lord was dead, at the hour of his death, as his knights record, they came into my castle of Tintagel a man like my lord in speech and in countenance, and 2 knights with him in the likeness of his 2 knights Brastias and Jordanus. And so I went to bed with him, as I ought to do with my lord, and the same night, as I shall answer to God, this child was begotten upon me." "That is truth," said the king, "as you say, for it was I myself that came in the likeness, and therefore dismay you not, for I am father to the child." And there he told her all the cause, and how it was by Merlin's counsel. And then the queen made great joy when she knew who was the father of the child. Okay, so here's another example of a change that Malory made to the story, which helps it be a little bit less offensive and our heroes seem less despicable. In this version, Uther goes to Igraine and comes clean that he was the man who came in disguise. In the Vulgate cycle, Merlin explicitly tells him not to tell her it was him, because if she doesn't know who the father is, she'll be more willing to give the baby up. So Uther asks, and she answers she doesn't know who the father was, and Uther says, "Well, since you don't know who the father was, we should give the baby away." And she agrees. So not only do they trick her into bed with a man she despises, not only did she have to marry the guy who tricked her into sex and impregnated her, now they're going to make her disgusted with her own baby in order to get it from her. Way to go, guys! But at least by 1485, Malory saw this as a teensy bit problematic. However, you will notice that in this version, Igraine made great joy because she knew who the father of her baby was, but you'll notice it just drops the topic about her giving the child away. So now she knows it's her husband's baby, but the text simply stays mum on the fact that after carrying the thing for 9 months, she has to just hand it over. Interesting. Soon came Merlin unto the king and said, "Sir, you must purvey now for the nourishing of your child." "As thou wilt," said the king, "be it." "Well," said Merlin, "I know a lord of yours in this land that is a passing true man and faithful, and he shall have the nourishing of your child. His name is Sir Ector, and he is a lord of fair living in many parts of England and Wales. This lord, Sir Ector, let him be sent for to come and speak with you, and desire him yourself, as he loves you, that he will put his own child to nourishing by another woman, and his wife nourish yours. And when the child is born, let it be delivered to me at yonder privy postern, unchristened." So like as Merlin devised, it was done. And when Sir Ector was come, he promised the king to nourish the child as the king desired, and there the king granted Sir Ector great rewards. Then when the lady was delivered, the king commanded 2 knights and 2 ladies to take the child, bound in a cloth of gold, and deliver him to what poor man they met at the postern gate of the castle. So the child was delivered unto Merlin, and so he bare it forth unto Sir Ector, and made a holy man christen him, and name him Arthur. And so Sir Ector's wife nourished him with her own pap. So Merlin comes to Uther and tells him to send for Sir Ector and arrange for him to take and raise this child. Okay, so an open question is, how much is Merlin actually directing this whole operation? Even in the Vulgate, it never explicitly comes out and says that Merlin is creating Arthur, but it does seem like he is the driving force behind all of this. In my book series, I decided to just go for it and make it that Merlin actually creates Arthur as a kind of social engineering experiment, just because I thought that's an interesting angle to explore. Now, one thing Morte d'Arthur does not say that is specified in the Vulgate is that Sir Ector and his wife are never to tell Arthur that he is not their own child. But one thing that is included here is that they are expecting their own child, which will turn out to be Kay, who's with Arthur right up until the end. And Merlin specifies that Lady Ector is to put their own son, Kay, to a wet nurse and nurse Arthur from her own breast. Interesting, no? Now later, Kay turns out to be quite irritable, sarcastic person, and one might wonder if this is somehow the reason, or it might have been in the medieval logic of the time. Anyway, I'm sort of fascinated by those little details in the Arthurian legend that are specified but never really elaborated on or explained. You'll also notice that Merlin specifies the name Arthur, which is interesting. Okay, let's pick it up in chapter 4. Then within 2 years, King Uther fell sick of a great malady, and in the meantime his enemies usurped upon him and did a great battle upon his men and slew many of his people. Sir, said Merlin, you may not lie so as you do, for you must to the field, though you lie on a horse litter. For you shall never have the better of your enemies, but if your person be there, and then shall you have the victory. So it was done as Merlin devised, and they carried the king forth on a horse litter with a great host toward his enemies. And at St. Albans there met with the king a great host of the north. And on that day Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias did great deeds of arms, and King Uther's men overcame the northern battle, and slew many people, and put the remnant to flight. Then the king returned to London, and made great joy of his victory. Okay, so within 2 years Uther mysteriously falls sick. In some versions he's poisoned. In the Vulgate his hands and feet swell up without explanation. This thing about him going in a litter before his troops is in the legend. A litter is sort of a flat wagon. So his troops are losing because Uther himself isn't there and present to encourage them. So what Merlin's proposing is that even though he's sick, he be pulled in front of his troops on a litter in order to inspire them. Now one thing that is in the larger story but is left out here is this situation with King Claudas, a person who's barely mentioned in Morte d'Arthur but very, very important in the larger saga. Claudas is in Gaul, which is France. He's trying to take over Gaul, and sometime in the past few years, Uther went over to help the king there repel Claudas, which they did. On the way out, Uther destroyed the land so that if Claudas ever retook it, it would be useless to him. This is now called the land laid waste, which is not the same thing as the wasteland, which will be coming up later. The point is, Claudas, because he will be coming back in a big way. Then he fell passing sore sick, so that 3 days and 3 nights he was speechless, wherefore all the barons made great sorrow, and asked Merlin what counsel were best. There is no other remedy, said Merlin, but God will have his will. But look, all you barons, be before the King Uther to morn, and God and I will make him to speak. So on the morn all the barons with Merlin came before the king. Then Merlin said aloud unto King Uther, Sire, shall your son Arthur be king after your days of this realm with all the appurtenances? Then Uther Pendragon turned to him and said, in hearing of them all, I give him God's blessing and mine, and bid him to pray for my soul, and righteously and worshipfully that he claim the crown upon forfeiture of my blessing. Then he yielded up the ghost, and was interred as proper for a king, wherefore Queen Igraine made great sorrow, and all the barons. Alright, so Uther is so sick he can't speak. Merlin makes him speak, and he asks him if Arthur should be king after him. The thing is, no one in the room has even heard of Arthur and knows who Arthur is. They haven't heard of him because he was taken away right after birth, so it's a bit of an oddity for this to happen now, but you know, whatevs. In the Vulgate, they make sure to mention that Uther's words are written down, so the proclamation can be brought out when Arthur finally appears on the scene. Okay, let's move on and get right into the next chapter, Ori of the Sword and the Stone.